Welcome. Thank you all for attending in person and virtually. I'd like to thank ATA Joe Layden, our town planner, Myron Toohill, for taking the lead for Littleton on this project, along with the Economic Development Committee and many others that have pitched in and helped out. While we are grateful that we are returning to normal, the impacts of the pandemic to Littleton, its residents, its business owners, are continuing to be felt. The town has taken many steps to mitigate impacts of the pandemic. We implemented a spending freeze and made cuts to our FY21 budget. Select Board waived licensing fees this year for businesses. Working with health professionals, we tracked the virus in our community, encouraged masking up through the Mask Up 01460 campaign. We held vaccination clinics. Littleton joined 4 other towns and received funding to support micro businesses, local food pantries, and families in need of childcare so they can return to work. We also applied for and received funding from the Commonwealth under the local rapid response program to help document how Littleton businesses were impacted by COVID-19. And through this, we were able to develop a plan for strengthening our local economy. Tonight, we are joined by Charles Cray and Jeffrey Maxdudis from the Beta Group. And they have been engaged to survey our Littleton Common businesses and how they have been impacted by COVID-19. They will present initial survey results of businesses and of the project area to collect feedback from residents and business owners. Please join me in welcoming Charles and Jeffrey, who will review the agenda for tonight's festivities. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Chuck. Jeff Maxdudis from Beta Group. We have a presentation tonight. It'll take around 25 minutes, and then we'd like to open it up to hear from you on comments and potential ideas for recommendations or solutions. So tonight's agenda, introductions, we'll go over what the program is. It's the state program, the schedule, the goals of the program, the study area. Most of our presentation will deal with existing conditions or diagnostics of information on businesses. And then we'd like to hear from you any comments or suggestions you have. And it'll take about an hour and a half approximately. Again, Jeff Maxdudis, I'm the plan facilitator. It's the title the state has for essentially the project manager. Charlie Cray is with me, who's done a lot of work on this project planner. And we've been working closely with Joe and Marin on this project in the town. So local rapid recovery program, it's put out by Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development. It's a program that provides cities and towns opportunities to develop actionable project-based recovery plans in response to COVID-19. Essentially, how to help businesses come out of COVID and really looking at town centers or villages or central business districts. There are 3 phases to the project I'll get to in a second, but the schedule for this is we're in phase 1, which is diagnostics or existing conditions, and most of that was completed by May. We're in phase 2 right now, which is developing draft recommendations for the project, and phase 3 will be done in August, and finishing in September will be a draft and final report. So the goals of the project are phase 1 called diagnostic. It's essentially existing conditions in the study area during COVID and coming out of COVID. It's to talk to stakeholders and business owners to find out how they were impacted by COVID. Recommendations is developing improvements or solutions to the project. And these are typically shorter term actions coming out of COVID. So how it help businesses right away coming out in this environment. And phase 3 is developing the plan or the report, and will be developed in a draft report. We'll receive comments back from residents and stakeholders and develop a final report. So the study area is essentially along the village area, along Great Road and King Street, a little bit to the north of 495, also the commercial industrial district, but most of it is located along the Great Road in the center village area. So any statistics we show for the study area It's based on those areas shown in the yellow color there. So that's referred to the study area. Those actual parcels or buildings in that area. And the study area won't reflect anything outside of that, although we have comparisons to town-wide information. So first we looked at customer base, and the customer base identifies who the customers are in this area and what other preferences and needs the businesses would fill. So this is just some background demographic information based on US Census data. The resident population is small in this area, but the whole town, we're over 10,000 people. Median household income, study area, 86,000. The town as a whole, 123,000. Median age, study area, 51. The town, 46. And median household size, persons per household, 2.3 in the study area, whole town, 2.7. Just basically some basic information about the study area. Population by age, there's not a lot of difference between the study area and the whole town. It's a pretty even distribution. There's a little bit more older persons living in the study area, but essentially there's not much difference in the age cohorts in the study area in the town. Population by race and ethnicity, town, again, it's pretty similar between the study area and the town. The town is not 90% white. Population by education and attainment. People are well educated. Vast majority have some level of college, and most have more bachelor's degree or beyond. This is a statistic that comes out of 495 Metro West that just shows there's been a lot of growth in Littleton in the last 10 years, over 13% increase in population and 56% increase in the number of adults 25 and older with a bachelor's degree. So it just shows what type of change has occurred with the population and people moving into Littleton in the last 10-year period. So the business environment, what are the impacts of COVID-19 on businesses? Is there an anchor, destination, or mix of businesses driving the local economy? And how well do those businesses meet customer needs or groups? So there's 116 storefronts total in that study area. Of that total, over 240,000 are ground floor retail and 111,000 are ground floor office. And this doesn't account for anything that may be on floors above the ground floor, second or third floors. So it's just the first floor or ground floor of those businesses. So DHCD developed a survey, and some of you may have received that survey back in March and April. It was launched by DHCD themselves, really to identify information for businesses and how businesses were impacted by COVID-19. And it's really directed at the business owners and people running those businesses in our study area. So there's several slides and showing information based on the survey and what we found in some of our information. So this is a bar chart. It shows the businesses by number of employees. Over half the businesses are what we consider a small 5 employees or fewer. So a lot of small stores and shops in the area. This is who owns and rents, pretty much it's an even split right down the middle. Half the businesses own their own properties and half rent their businesses. Characteristics by business type into category. There's a good distribution here of most types of businesses: retail, food service, professional, finance, recreation, fitness. So, pretty much every business is represented, at least in the study area. Impacts reported by businesses. I'll say this is probably not, these slides aren't going to be a surprise because everybody was affected by COVID. But remember, these surveys were done back in March and April. So the environment is quite a bit different now. In July, it's quite a bit better than it was back then. So, but most businesses were impacted 3/4 of the businesses reported a decline in revenue. 40% employee layoff, 3/4 with reduced operating hours or capacity, and about 60% incurred expense to safety measures such as PPE, masks, and disinfectant and those type of things. This is the operating status, March and April. Operating at full capacity, 46%. That's actually pretty high compared to some other communities we looked at. So that's a pretty good statistic. And those operating at reduced hours back in March and April, about half the businesses. And there were maybe 1 or 2 that were temporarily closed or permanently closed. Decline in business revenue. Again, probably no surprises. 72% of businesses had fewer revenue in 2020 than before COVID. And about half of those businesses had a revenue decline of 25% or more, which is significant. So it's less foot traffic or revenue coming in to the businesses. 73% had fewer on-site customers than before COVID, and 46, about half of the businesses reported a reduction of on-site customers of 25% or more. Again, a pretty significant impact. These next few slides show the respondents' response to if they're satisfied or dissatisfied with different conditions. And the bar on the left is, and the red bar is very dissatisfied. And then we scale to the right, the yellowish brown bar is, let's say, dissatisfied. Yellow is kind of in the middle. Green is satisfied, and the dark green is very satisfied. So condition of public spaces, streets, and sidewalks, it was kind of in the middle, more neutral. Safety and comfort of customers and employees, people are satisfied. Condition of private buildings, storefronts, and signs, more in the middle. Proximity to complementary business and uses, people are satisfied. And access for customers and employees, somewhat satisfied. This is regulations that pose an obstacle to business operations. So how do business owners feel if there are impediments to business based on regulation? Well, 62% felt there really wasn't any type of issue with regulation. That's good. And then the highest response for an obstacle was sign regulations. 25% said they had an issue with sign regulations, and maybe that's something someone can comment on later if they have an opinion on that. These set of questions were asked about possible strategies to improve the environment and atmosphere for businesses. And the scale here is on the left for unimportant, not needed, all the way to the right, so very important. So all these are really rated by the respondents as being important. Renovation of storefronts and building facades, improvements in safety and cleanliness, development of public spaces and seating areas, changes in public parking and management of policies, improvement of streetscape and sidewalks. That was probably the highest, very important. And amenity improvements of public transit and bicycle users. All these were ranked as important by the respondents. These were strategies to attract or retain customers or businesses in the study area. Again, pretty strong responses of being important. More cultural events, activities to bring people into the district. Recruitment programs to attract additional businesses, very important. More opportunities for outdoor dining and selling. Changes to zoning or other regulations. Implementing marketing strategies for the commercial district, very important. And creation of a district management entity. So all those were rated very important to very important by the respondents. These were possible strategies for support of businesses, how people ranked their response to if they wanted to thought any type of support was necessary. The highest category that received was participating in shared marketing and advertising for the village study area. 41% of respondents replied that they would like to receive that type of assistance. The next highest was training on the use of social media for business at 30%. And none of the 28% responded, none of these applied. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Charlie Cray, who's going to talk about the physical inventory environment that we conducted as part of the study area and show some examples of the study area. And then after that, we'll get into public comment.
Should we switch?
Yeah.
All right, great.
Sure.
Thank you, Jeff. And hello all, nice to be here. Nice to see you all. My first public meeting in a long time, so it's nice to be here in Littleton. A few things before I dive in. The square footage that we examined was a very high up view. That's not to be taken to the square foot. You know, we're rounding up or down 10,000 or so. Whereas the number of businesses we surveyed, that was a door-to-door survey. I walked to each business and cataloged it, took a photo, figured out whether it was retail, service, admin, government, things like that. So that was a much more focused effort. And in terms of the 63 responses, some of those responses came out from outside of the study area. The survey was released to a little bit of a wider audience, and we didn't have a methodology to determine if the owner of CVS in the study area responded versus somebody on the other end of town outside the study area. So we just included them all as a nice representation of businesses inside the study area as well as a few outside. So just a few notes there. While we were doing the phase 1 diagnostics, we looked at the physical environment and we were provided with these guiding questions to sort of guide our research. How is the physical environment meeting the needs of businesses and business owners and employees? And what are the challenges and opportunities in the public realm, the private realm, and access and visibility? So we came out to Littleton, we established a study area, and we looked at the private realm first. And there were 6 elements to be scored: windows, outdoor display or any type of outdoor dining, signage, building awnings, building facades, and of course, exterior lighting or interior lighting that spills onto the street. So these are the things that we examined and provided a score to. Each business in the study area received an A, B, C, or fail for each of those elements. So we were here for a couple of days in a row, just going door to door and figuring this out. We were provided this rubric, so we had to use this scoring system. The next slide shows what I'm calling the report card, and I want to acknowledge that it's cumulative. So a score of a C is for the whole area. This is not a look at your business. If you're a business owner in this room, there's no finger wag at the quality of the awning of your structure. This is just the whole area in a nutshell. The private realm report card, the lighting scored a B, facades a B, awnings a B, signage an A, outdoor display and dining was a not applicable or fail, and windows were a B. So pretty high scoring across the board in comparison to some of the other communities that we're working with. Pretty good scores there. This photo and the photo on the next slide they're not taken in Littleton. These were actually provided as examples of quality private realm, public realm spillover areas in different downtowns. I believe these are all in New England, but it's just a nice precedent to see. We also examined the public realm, and there were 5 elements to score within the public realm. We looked at sidewalks, street trees and benches, lighting, public lighting, so not focused on a business or coming from a business, but street lighting, wayfinding and signage, and the quality and the consistency of the roadbed and crosswalks. Again, this rubric was provided. It's a little formulaic, and we came out and we looked at all of these elements within the study area and came up with a cumulative score, if you will. Lighting scored a not applicable or fail. Wayfinding and signage scored a C. Sidewalks a B. Street trees and benches was a not applicable or fail. Roadbed and crosswalks was an A. And again, this isn't about one street corner, one sidewalk segment. This is the whole district. During our research, we also examined some precedent materials. We looked at the roadmap for revitalization, the Littleton roadmap report, I believe, I think published in 2017. And this graphic, this map stood out to us. 2019, thank you, Jeff. Published in 2019, excuse me. And this graphic identified what they are discussing as soft sites for redevelopment. So basically what the report was saying was that there is opportunity for a little bit greater lot coverage and a little bit greater square footage, maybe per lot in some of the downtown area. Because Littleton is a destination, people want to come here and shop and dine. And I think the message was, if you're going to do any redevelopment, it should be in the core of town, near the common. While we were doing our analysis, we cataloged some existing conditions. We took lots of photos, and we got examples of storefronts, of sidewalk and street furniture, surface parking lots with storefront setbacks, some areas where there was some poor sidewalk definition, or maybe some generous curb cuts is another way to think about that. And just a really nice photo of the town common. The sun came out while I was out here. It was a really fun day of field work. I enjoyed talking to people and seeing Littleton Common come to life a little bit. We also examined outdoor signage. We took a lot of photos and did a lot of thinking about the outdoor signage existing conditions in Littleton, really across the study area. We looked at facades, parking, and some building setbacks that stood out to us as the pedestrian realm is experiencing a few gaps with these surface parking lots. Just something that we may not have a fix for today, but it's just important to catalog for our look into project recommendations. So that was primarily physical environment and some private realm. We also looked at administrative capacity. The guiding questions that helped us with this research are: who are the stewards of the study area? What are their resources? Are they adequate? And are there any regulatory, zoning, or permitting processes that are impediments to business or business owners? The Neshoba Valley Chamber of Commerce and the Littleton Business Association are the primary groups helping out with administrative capacity beyond town hall. That's important to note, that this is an examination of additional administrative capacity. And just a quick summary of what we heard. A lot of this stuff came from the bar charts, but maybe some of it anecdotal as well. Areas that business owners emphasized their dissatisfaction primarily with public spaces, streets and sidewalks, and condition of private buildings, storefronts, and signs. So 2 there in the physical environment, public realm, private realm. And the potential strategies for improvement for the physical environment, the highest scoring were improvement of streetscape and sidewalks, and improvements in safety and cleanliness, as well as public development of public spaces and additional seating. I think that any successful downtown has a mix of all of these things. There's not one key thing to focus on. It's just having a variety of choices. The obstacles to business operation, the highest scoring one or most voted one was signage regulations at 25%, and the improvement strategies to attract and retain customers. These were the most voted 4 answers, were recruitment program to attract additional businesses, marketing strategies for the district, opportunities for outdoor dining and outdoor selling, and more cultural events and activities. And I think that Littleton Common would be a great place to host cultural events and activities. There's a lot of green space. It's very attractive. So it's sort of ripe for that. We also brainstormed ourselves some potential project ideas, and we looked at some pedestrian improvements as well. We talked to business owners. We met with Joseph and Marin, and this is just a list to kind of start the conversation. We want to hear from you all, but we wanted to give you a little primer. So some potential project ideas would be to implement smart sewers or smart sewering. There's an opportunity to reconstruct an intersection that is a little bit wide and a little bit uncomfortable depending on which direction you're traveling at King at Goldsmith Streets, where you enter Stevens Street. And then we found just a variety of possible pedestrian improvements, curb extensions, sidewalk and street furniture around Stevens Street. There's a sidewalk problem in front of Donald's Grocery over by Abushan Hardware. There's just poor definition and maybe could enliven the sort of streetscape and sidewalk transition to private property there. And the sidewalk in front of Wild Valley Books, or really lack thereof, that parallel parking right in front of the store would be a very effective place to introduce a sidewalk. And then we also noticed that there's bike lanes along King Street, which is great for alternative modes of transportation. But the sidewalk improvements and pedestrian improvements were just a way for us to say that we've started brainstorming these projects, and we wanted to talk more about that. So at this stage, I can pass it back to Jeff for now, and we can talk about comments and questions and next steps as well.
Yep, thanks, Charlie. So that's really a snapshot of what we found, and that's really the summary of the phase one, and that will be included in the report, and there's additional backup for that information. But we wanted to open it up now to see if you had any reaction or comments, first of all, to the information that was presented. Does that seem like it's accurate to what your findings are? You know the area much better than we do. Or is there something missing that didn't quite hit the mark? Or just, this is pretty much informal, open it up, issues, deficiencies, and ideas for improvement and solutions to just, get us thinking about that. We're in a very short schedule as part of this project. It's dictated by the state, so we have to be done by essentially end of August, early September. So we're working on those now, but we want to reach out to you to see what your thoughts and ideas or comments are. This is not the only chance you'll have. There's a flyer back there with our emails and Marin and Joe's also, and you can feel free to email us and we can have conversations with you. We're happy to do that if you want to have a more detailed conversation offline at any time. So we really want to understand some of the issues here and get to what improvements can be made. And hopefully the state will have some grant funding available. We don't know that right now, but we want the town to be positioned for that if that happens in the future. So coming out of this, if there is opportunity for funding, we want the report to put the town in the best light and favorable position to apply and get that funding. So we don't know of any funding mechanisms right now, but that is a possibility coming out of this process. So at this point, I would welcome any questions or comments you have, and if you do, if you can come up to the microphone and state your name and address.
If I may just interject for the people in Zoom land, while we do have some people physically in the community room here, if anyone is interested, and I see some people have started to raise their hand, please raise your hand on Zoom so that we can also get your feedback as well, and I'll call and introduce you to provide comment.
Thank you very much for doing the study and for being here tonight. Ed Mullen, Littleton Building Commissioner. I guess the most important one that I wanted to address was the sign bylaw. Since COVID hit, we have not done any enforcement of the sign bylaw because we obviously wanted those businesses to be able to advertise it where they were open in any particular way. That being said, one of the goals I set early on is that we do want to redo our sign bylaw. I wouldn't say that it's overly restrictive. It's just hard to understand the way it's written. I think that if we were able to do some graphics along with how it's written and maybe a few tweaks, we could probably get a better sign bylaw out there for our community and for our businesses. So it is a goal we have in mind. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alicia Day. I'm the director for Littleton Parks Recreation. I'm also a resident here in town. So as a resident, I guess I had one question that sort of popped up. I know that the 63 responses have kind of came up a few times in the presentation. I was just curious what the total amount of businesses in that area was, because I think 63 seems like a little bit of a low number.
I'm going to reverse the slides here. And I don't want to make anyone sick, so.
Just
Avert
look
your
away.
eyes.
Just hold on. Yeah, it's,
So we had 63 responses to the digital survey. And while
106,
we were
okay. 16.
in town, boots on the ground,
Yeah,
we observed 116 storefronts.
okay,
That includes the point.
right.
It also includes the mill building. The name of it escapes me at the moment.
We all know what you're saying when you say that.
So-
What did you say?
What's that?
410.
410.
So if I walked in there and there was 34 individual
Right.
proprietors, I added 34 to the
Okay.
total. So
Gotcha.
you take out the point, you take out the mill building, and you have a much
I gotcha.
smaller number for Littleton
yeah.
Common.
The thing with the 63, we're not sure if that's just the study area though. It may have expanded beyond the study area, the
Interesting.
responses.
Okay. And just the other piece that I wanted to comment to was, I know you had brought up that the Common seemed like a really great idea for throwing events or, cultural activities. So as the director for Parks and Rec, we do a lot of the special events in town. And I think Joe can kind of attest to it. We used to do our third Thursdays out there, which we bring local businesses in just to kind of interact with the public and a really awesome community building forum. And that area, we ended up not using it, and we moved everything kind of over to Fay Park and switched things around to some of the other locations because of the safety issue, because of that very interesting intersection that you mentioned on Goldsmith and Stephen. And, the lack of parking and, having to cross across very busy intersections. So
Right.
I just wanted to throw that out as something that, we had learned from prior experience.
Right. And when did you stop having events there?
Oh, do you remember?
Almost 3 or 4 years
3 or
ago.
4 years ago. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yep.
And it's really safety concerns with traffic adjacent to the
Yeah,
park?
like people crossing the road. We did a detail with the police when we did hold it. So we would close off the section of Stevens that was in
Yeah.
front of the vet.
Yeah.
And that ended up causing some more traffic issues. So it was kind of one of those compounded problems, but
Well, it is a challenging area.
it is
for
indeed.
sure. Yeah.
All right, I think that's all I have.
What's the new location for the events?
So we switch it up and we do Fay Park, which is right across the street here. Yes. We've done a few at 300 King. We've tried to work with the Point to get some working out there, but it's so hot in the summertime and there's no shade. So
Right.
we've had like a challenge of finding a good location for it. And we've actually done it down at our beach at Long Lake sometimes as well.
Excellent.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
I'm Joe Knox with the board, with the select board, and also part of the business association in town. I want to thank you for all the work you've done, and I realize a lot of this is trying to recover the COVID, but I want to know, how often did you talk to local businesses about wastewater treatment? Because the people that I have talked to in the business community have talked about things like, I'm not going to change right now until I find out what's going to happen. And then maybe I'll change my storefront and make improvements like that. Because I think wastewater treatment at the Common is vital so we can get full use and proper use of that area.
Right, right. I mean, we heard that a lot and from the previous studies and talking to town staff. So yeah, thank you very much.
Jeff, nice to see you guys here tonight. I'm Anna Houston. I'm with the Littleton Planning Board and also a resident. So I just wanted to comment that for some of the activities that you talked about with respect to having activities on the Common, we do have a cultural council.
Mhm.
And so folks on that particular committee might be able to provide further input. And then also I wanted to ask whether or not you all had referenced the form-based code that we have for that particular part of town.
I mean, we're aware of it.
Okay,
That's it. Yeah.
terrific. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And is there a contact at the Cultural Council that do you know of? Joe?
Yeah, I can make that connection.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Hi, my name is Dina Flockhart. I run a business called Cloak and Dagger Creations. We've been in town for nearly 30 years. I spent 14 years working the business out of my house, 14 years in the mill, and just before COVID, moved back to my house. So I would have been in the study area. I did get the electronic survey. I would take issue with your observation that the crosswalks are adequate. If you've ever, what time of day did you do your survey?
I would usually arrive around 8 and work till about 4:30.
Okay, so you missed homeward bound rush hour.
Okay.
The third Thursday events were during homeward bound rush hour, and closing off Stevens Street and having an activity in the middle of town, right there on the Common, I would say it was a traffic nightmare. I did participate in third Thursdays when they were on the Common. The complaints I got from my customers were an extreme lack of parking, lack of access, lack of crosswalks, because there aren't any crosswalks on 119 once you leave the Common area. You have to go all the way down to the far end, past most of the Toyota dealership before you see any more crosswalks. And that's a big detriment to the businesses in there. You can't just park and get across the street. You take your life in your hands.
I just want to interject and say I agree, and that the survey questioning was such that it was it wasn't about are the crosswalks, is the number adequate?
Yep.
It was if they're
Are there any?
striped, you know,
Yeah.
how do they look?
Yeah, I didn't just walk in. I have been following on Zoom since this started.
Sure.
Um,
So I fully understand how that would be misconstrued, and the graphic on the screen, which shows we were making jokes about color blindness earlier. I also fall in that category. I would say like a yellow or a green color. Those
Yep.
are the proposed crosswalk
Awesome.
from the revitalization
Absolutely awesome idea.
roadmap. So
So the things I want to address, I think the greatest impediment is a unified parking. You see lots of places, you can only park for this business here. You can only park for that business there. It's very much, regional proprietary. It's not everybody pulling together. Like I said, I moved my business out of the center of town. Even though the mill has a big, huge parking lot out back, it wasn't adequate. And I couldn't address my customers. And I usually get less than one customer a day. So that's saying quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's also a problem for businesses to get deliveries. The ones on 119 are probably fine, but anybody in that mill building, it's a nightmare to get a delivery. And I don't know about some of the other buildings. You know, I have a master's degree in regional planning. I served on the first master plan committee. I commented on the second. Unification is a big theme. Right now, you've got, again, separate businesses, separate ideas. If you go to someplace like Concord or West Concord, or things flow together. You want to park your car and walk from one place to another. And that doesn't happen here. And it's very much about car culture rather than pedestrian or bicycle culture. And I think that's the basic problem we have to address. And yes, I know you're completely bound by the limits of your survey. One of the things we talked about with the newest master plan was possibly doing some sort of connector behind the parking lots, where the buildings didn't have setbacks but had parking lots behind, making it comfortable to flow from one to another, putting benches, putting tables, making it more comfortable for people. So that, because right now, without crosswalks, without speed bumps, anything like that, people, despite the speed limit signs, go zooming down 119. If you're walking in front of Donaldson's, in front of Citizens Bank, you get pelted with little pebbles. And it's uncomfortable to walk there. So that's some of my observations, because I liked having a business in the center of town, because I could walk to the bank, I could walk to someplace to eat, I could walk to the post office, but it wasn't worthwhile for me as a business owner, and sometimes as a shopper. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks for
Appreciate
listening.
Okay. And also they're going to be bringing in James Kennedy. He's participating virtually. Hello, James, can you hear us?
Hi, I'm sorry. I just had, I got disconnected for a minute. But yeah, thank you for inviting me to speak. I live at 50 Gilson Road in Littleton, and I'm also president of the local business association. And one of my questions with the process was, is the government going to be looking at the grant opportunities or project funding opportunities with a scorecard? And do we have any idea of what that scorecard might look like?
Yeah, thank you, James. We don't have any information on that right now. We do, as we showed in the presentation, there was a score presented for public and private realm. We don't know if that's part of the calculation or not that will be used in any potential in funding. So we haven't received any information on that. As soon as we do, we would share it with the town and any type of criteria for developing an application and what that scoring may be. But right now, we don't have any information.
Okay, from your experience, is it possible to identify potential scorecard criteria that may be part of the process?
I think it would be premature because we're just not sure what that would be. But we have all the information and data as part of the process. So if it's like some other state funding programs, this would be like the first phase, and you need to complete the first phase of the project to be eligible for the next phase in funding. So it's still early on, and I guess we'll have to wait and see.
So so this is not going to happen tomorrow, obviously. Do you have some type of schedule that they provided of when the next phase would be happening?
We don't. This phase of the project, the rapid recovery phase study will be ending mid-September.
Okay, so maybe not so rapid funding, but hopefully we get something going for maybe 2022 in terms of projects.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's approximately 125 communities who are part of this program. So Littleton is with the first wave. I don't know if it's going to continue, but at least you're in the first wave, and will be. If there is a funding grant program, you'd be eligible for that.
Thank you.
No, we don't have anyone else on Zoom with their hand raised, but if I could just comment to what James had mentioned, I think even in some of the preliminary findings that were reviewed, I think there's a lot of work items that even on town level that we're able to work forward with. And a lot of the stuff even dealing with sidewalks, access issues, I think one of the challenges we have is that they're all essentially controlled by District 3. And that being part of this process, it gives us great level of analysis and community input and review to have discussions with District 3. And whether it's part of a complete streets application or another application of the state, this type of planning work does help in our being able to get the ear of officials, whether it's with MassDOT or DHCD, to try to move some of these things forward, regardless of whether or not we know what potential grant programs may be available. So it's all something that we can also work with.
Jim, you good?
Yeah.
Chuck DeCoste, resident, member of the select board, member of the Economic Development Committee. And a lot of the ideas that kind of bubble up during this, crosswalks and Joe kind of stole some of my thunder there. There's a lot of projects that are more long-term that require a lot of capital. And they're things that very much are on the select board's agenda and our goals. And we're looking to make improvements, more walkable, more bike access, pedestrian access. You guys had mentioned a couple of times that you're working with other communities. Charlie, you brought up a picture of what looked like Arlington with, street dining and all those kinds of things. With the 120 communities that are involved in this program, you guys are engaged with some percentage of those communities. Is there any low-lying fruit? Are there any projects or any things that you guys have been able to identify that have been more easily implemented than us doing more curb cuts and putting in sidewalks and that kind of stuff? Because it's all stuff we need to do and we need to be aware of. And it's very good to, kind of reiterate that for us. But is there any low-lying fruit, any projects that you guys have identified or you think that there might be out there, or any feedback that you got from some of the businesses that have said, hey, if you're going to be doing something, you should do this. This is what the sign bylaw should look like. Have you gotten any of that kind of feedback? Or are there any projects from other communities that you might be able to say, hey, you guys should probably do something like this as well?
Yes. I will say on the infrastructure side, dealing with MassDOT, can be a lengthier process since they have jurisdiction of the main roadway. So even doing a flashing beacon on a crosswalk, would take their
It's been 10 years to get one at the high school. So
yeah, maybe I would hope it wouldn't be that long, but yeah, it takes a while. Yeah. So we have varying communities from similar to Littleton, and then some that are far different in terms of being rural or agricultural. I think wayfinding has come up as one of the things I think in almost every community we've been looking at. Wayfinding, signage, banners, storefronts, maintenance and upkeep, dealing with vacancies in owners of the parcels in the building, and how to communicate and fill those vacancies and make improvements to the storefront. So that's come up quite a bit in some of the other communities.
So have there been like ideas for communities like the Economic Development Committee? If you guys do this, we've seen this result in these other 3 communities that we've worked in that have helped to take down some of those for lease signs. Ultimately,
Yeah.
the reason we even engaged in this with the other communities was to rapid recovery. I mean, it's right in the title, right? We want to try to help all businesses really,
Right.
to recover.
Right.
You know, so if there are any of those silver bullets or low-lying fruit, would love to focus on some of those. We definitely have some long-term plans to do some of the big
Sure,
things,
sure.
but if you guys could focus on some of the quick hits,
Yeah.
that
no,
definitely would be beneficial.
Yeah, point taken. And we will. And I just will mention, there's another resource available to us, the subject matter experts, they're called, as part of this process. And we'll be talking soon and focusing on those areas if we need to bring somebody in to talk about specific areas like that. So it's just another resource for us to use. So really in the thick of things right now. And we'll be moving quickly at this point, but we will communicate if there are early action items that we can get done quickly.
Can I
Thanks, Jeff.
take you back?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to. It's important to acknowledge the IBM building is vacant, and it's a very large vacancy. But we did not see the levels of vacancy in Littleton that we saw in probably 7 out of our 9 communities. So Littleton, from my perspective, has not been as sort of dramatically hard hit with the vacancies that some of the other communities have seen. And I think that those vacancies in those communities are driving the need and the want to reach out to subject matter experts, get someone involved who's an expert in retail mix and sprucing up storefronts and things like that. So it's always need driven. And I'm hoping that tonight we can come up with some awesome ideas, because in those communities, the writing was on the wall for the large scale project. And in Littleton, there's a handful of small vacancies, but it's not like it is elsewhere. So that's just a slightly anecdotal, but important point, I think.
Hello, Alicia Day again, Director of Parks and Recreation and resident here in town. One thing I did want to ask, so part of this, it does not include Taylor Street and all of the office buildings that are out there as well. Is that correct?
Let's go back to the study area map briefly, just so we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
It's, near the front.
Yeah, a few more. Everyone look away.
Way up the
Sorry, I
front.
keep doing this to everyone. My
No,
apologies.
No, we'll be there momentarily. Taylor Street is.
Not on there.
Okay.
Uh,
So, and I just bring that up because I know that there is a lot of vacancy of spaces out there. I know HP had shut down recently and they demolished that building, and that's now going to become a parking lot for Amazon that's out there. But I do know in that area, there's a lot of those office building complexes. And there's a lot of that space that has not been rented or purchased. So I know that's one area where that is definitely part of our business, that, perhaps maybe that's something that should be looked at if possible. The main reason I came up, I had a thought while I was thinking there. So one of the statistics that you had up there is one of the biggest asks of the businesses were 41% of them wanted to participate in some sort of shared marketing.
Mhm.
Was there any further discussion with them on ways to be able to collaborate or interest in collaboration?
Did you have anything?
No, that's a great question.
Okay.
And we're still in the, we're figuring out the next steps phase, right? So
Mhm.
that is an opportunity for a
Right.
next step. And the frank answer is we haven't done that yet,
Okay.
but it's a great idea.
I would definitely suggest it. One of the things, our department, we had a very dramatic cut of programming. We also weren't able to use space inside for a very long time. And we actually paired up with O'Neill Cinema, and we were able to offer a monitored remote learning program for the kids that were virtual during the school day so that the parents could still go back to work. So we were able to, use the space at the cinema. They would invoice us for use of that space. And, the kids were also in a space where they were cared for and kept on their schedule with the school agenda, and, parents were able to stay and work. So it's one of those areas where I know collaboration, a lot of people, especially when money is up for grabs, that, everyone sort of goes to their own silos. But in reality, if you have a smaller pot of money to work with, having those collaborations with the businesses, it really benefits a lot of people in a lot of ways. So I think that would be a really good ask of those businesses.
That's great. Yeah,
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah, sorry, it's James Cody in the Business Association again. There was no way to raise my hand, so I didn't know. I just wanted to welcome any government department, be it Parks and Rec or other. If they want to collaborate with the business community, feel free to send me any programs or any ideas that you have, and I'll reach out to our membership as well as people who participated in the survey and help out. Be happy to do that.
Thanks, James.
Do you know how to get in touch?
Yeah, I do.
Good, good.
I think he's done.
I think it's done.
Hi, Anna Houston again, Planning Board. So as you were talking about the roads and crosswalks, it made me think about two other groups that perhaps could contribute ideas as to what they've already been looking on.
Mhm.
So the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Jonathan Isaac is currently listed as the chair. So that group would be looking at that. And then the other one is the Transportation Advisory Council. And that person who would probably would be Gary LaCroix. Yeah, Gary LaCroix.
Okay.
He's been doing that for several years, being able to bring all these varied groups together to talk about transportation issues in town. So they might be able to also contribute.
Great. Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
That name rings a bell. I think we may have communicated with Gary.
You may have
We may have, but thanks for the information on Jonathan Isaac as well.
When did you do your survey?
The last week of April.
When did the sign go up for digital?
Say it again, please.
There's a really big building in Littleton. What? They addressed that? Because what was the vacancy rate you found?
We don't have an established vacancy rate. We have a square foot count, but we didn't include that in our slides. But I do
Okay.
have that diagnostic information. I could follow up with you if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious because you said that there were several communities that had greater vacancy rates than we do. And digital's 100. They excluded that?
Yeah.
Because I was gonna say that, and I know several businesses have gone out since April.
Mm.
Yangtze, for instance, or actually, I guess that's right over the line. But yeah, several
Yeah.
businesses have gone out since April.
No, that's important. And
Yeah.
Actually, my email is on a piece of paper in the back. You can
Okay.
take it home. Like there's 30 of them.
Okay,
Let me know, and we'll update our information. High level, the sort of diagnostic, it's interested in the number of vacancies, I think, over the square footage. So that's why IBM is such an outlier, right?
Yep.
It's one, building or organization, but it's so big. So in some of these other communities, you've got way more vacancies, but these are 5 and 8 and 10 and 12,000 square foot
Yeah.
storefronts, mom and pop, travel agency, insurance. So it's a little bit of a different way to analyze it.
so in terms of the help we can get, one of the things I've always been told about the crosswalks is that they're state roads, and that's why it takes so long, and it's a huge process. Do you think that's something you're going to be able to expedite?
So there's a couple different programs, and we could I'm not sure if Littleton has done complete streets. I'm sure that, right? Shared streets. So you have prioritization plan. So if it's on that list, you can apply for, for funding for those projects. And I'm sure you have before, but I don't know about this specific location.
Well, not just funding, but permission. I was told that there's channels it has to go through.
Yeah.
And the other question was the possibility of speed bumps or speed crosswalks.
I doubt they would ever do that on Great Road or King Street. Usually you see those on, more local residential type roadways and not, arterial streets.
I know they do have, they're not total speed bumps, but they are noisemakers in Concord.
On which street, do you know?
Monument?
Okay. And it's near the center, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they really don't want people going fast to the center, and they don't want people commuting through there.
Yeah. And we could, we could have those discussions. I mean, MassDOT's about safety for all modes, right?
Yep.
But it is a major arterial. So, slowing down, if you could manage traffic and still have the same flow on a main arterial, that'd be great. But, we could look at ways to at least open the conversation with them.
Or even crosswalks like Kimball's has that you press a button and it flashes lights.
Right.
So it's not a red light, but it does tell people they have to be careful and slow down.
So there is one of the most recent techniques is rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So they are rectangular and they flash and they flash, and they're bright during the daytime, which is great. So that is accepted device for MassDOT. Other things are hybrid or Hawk signal. I don't know if you've heard of those.
No, I haven't.
So that's like a halfway between a full-fledged traffic signal and a flashing beacon. Was developed in Tucson, Arizona, maybe 15 years ago. It's not that accepted yet in the Northeast, although there are some examples here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a higher level than just a flashing beacon. Of course, bump outs, curb extensions are another way to get people, motorists aware, better visibility of pedestrians, before they cross the roadway.
Anything we can do.
There are all those types of techniques. So.
Yeah, one of the problems on 2A, where it heads towards the next exit south on 495, is the afternoon sun.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a couple pedestrian incidents because people literally couldn't see the pedestrians.
Yeah. So I think that the key thing is managing the traffic to be slow where the pedestrians are need to cross. I mean,
Yep.
And it's challenging here, but
Yeah, it is.
we had to start somewhere.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I wonder if once the state receives all the project recommendations for 125 towns, if there's enough project recommendations that are saying we need these kinds of crosswalks and these kinds of streets and they're all state owned, if MassDOT would possibly speed up the process. I just don't know. I'm speculating. I want to acknowledge that, but it's a possibility. So.
We have also a Vanessa Strong on Zoom who has a comment or question.
Hello, yes, I'm Vanessa Strong, and I'm a resident, live on 59 Gilson Road. Also help out on the Economic Development Committee and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. So I wanted to, sounded like there was a lot of sidewalk and crosswalk biking finding. So I just wanted to let you know we're here. Love to see more of the results in the background of the survey to help out. And citizens are right, because these roads are owned by the state, it has been quite difficult to kind of move some of the fairly obvious, I think, developments we could do to make it safer. But we did get recent funding for a bike and pedestrian master plan. So that would dovetail nicely with these findings and maybe put some power behind getting these projects done, even if it's low-lying fruit or bigger projects. So just wanted to put my name out there. I'm Vanessa Strong. I work with Jonathan very closely on the BPAC and with Chuck DeCoste and the Economic Development Board.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa. Maybe we can have a discussion offline and, you know, a little more detail at some point.
Yeah, happy to, anytime.
Thank you very much.
Jonathan has me. Thank you.
Joseph, could you give us contact information for?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'd like to speak to a lot of folks after this meeting. Vanessa included.
Do you want to go to next step slide, Charlie? Maybe that's a good idea.
Oh, poor guy.
Look away.
There we go. So this is where we're at. You know, we're gathering additional information. We're talking with you and town staff, and you know, developing draft recommendations. So we're kind of right in the thick of things right now, and over the next month or so, we're going to be you know, diving down into a lot of details. And we'll be talking to you about a draft recommendations and getting your feedback on that. So that's really where we're at right now. Joe, is anyone else on Zoom? Questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Again, feel free to reach out to us. We're glad to talk to you offline in more detail. So we have no problem doing that.
So do you guys have your contact information you can put up on the screen? So if there are folks at home that are watching, no?
Could
I
I
don't know if you have the,
don't know if you just
the flyer.
type it there?
And this will be rerun as well on LCTV and local access. So that way, if folks didn't want to get a hold of you and they're watching this, they'll be able to get it.
Absolutely. Feel free to you know, send us an email. That'd be great.
Thanks all for your great comments and questions.
Thank you for attending.